Jake Murphy stared at the message on his computer screen for the third time. The words still looked wrong. Someone wanted him to give a lecture at the Galactic Military Academy. Him. A simple Marine from Earth who spent most of his time fixing broken equipment and training new recruits. The message came from Colonel Price, his commanding officer. Jake walked down the metal hallways of Mars Base 7 to find him. The red dust outside the windows reminded him how far from home he really was. Earth was just a blue dot in the sky now. "Sir, about this message," Jake said when he found the colonel in his office. Colonel Price looked up from his paperwork. He was a big man with gray hair and tired eyes. "Ah, yes, Murphy. Sit down." Jake sat in the hard metal chair. "Sir, I think there's been a mistake. They want me to lecture at the Academy on Kepler Station. That's for officers and alien military leaders. I'm just a staff sergeant." The colonel smiled. "No mistake, Jake. You were specifically requested." "By who?" "The Galactic Military Council. They're starting a new program. Different species sharing combat knowledge. They want someone who fought in the Titan Rebellion." Jake remembered Titan. The mining colony that almost fell to raiders. 3 months of fighting in low gravity and toxic air. Most of his squad didn't make it home. "Sir, there were lots of Marines on Titan. Why me?" "Because you did something different there. The report says you saved the colony by ignoring standard procedure. The aliens want to understand human tactics." Jake laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Human tactics? Sir, we just made it up as we went along. When the book didn't work, we threw it away." "Exactly." The colonel leaned forward. "That's what they want to learn about." The trip to Kepler Station took 4 days on a transport ship. Jake spent most of the time reading files about the Academy. It was built in space between 3 star systems. Students came from 12 different alien races, the best and brightest, future military leaders in the galaxy, and they wanted him to teach them. The transport ship docked with Kepler Station with a soft bump. Jake grabbed his small bag and walked toward the airlock. Through the windows, he could see the massive station spinning slowly. It looked like a huge wheel with spokes reaching toward the center. The airlock opened, and Jake got his first look. At the Galactic Military Academy, the walls were white and clean. The ceiling was high and curved. Everything looked expensive and important. "Sergeant Murphy?" The voice came from behind him. Jake turned around. A creature stood there that looked like a giant insect with 6 arms. Its skin was dark green and shiny. 4 eyes looked at him from a head shaped like a triangle. "I am Commander Vexthor," the creature said. Its voice was high and musical. "I oversee military doctrine instruction at the Academy." "Nice to meet you, sir," Jake said. He wasn't sure if he should salute or shake hands. The creature had too many hands anyway. Indeed. Vexthor looked Jake up and down. "You are smaller than I expected." Jake was used to that. At 5 feet 8 inches, he wasn't tall even by human standards. "Size isn't everything, sir." Vexthor turned and started walking. "Follow me. I will show you to your quarters, and then the lecture hall." They walked through corridors filled with alien students. Jake saw tall creatures with 4 legs and long necks. Others looked like walking rocks with glowing eyes. Some had wings folded against their backs. All of them stared at Jake as he passed. "Most of our students have never seen a human before," Vexthor explained. "Your species is still quite new to galactic society." "How new?" "You made first contact 37 years ago. Most of our student species have been spacefaring for thousands of years." Jake nodded. That explained the stares. To them, humans were the new kids in school. His quarters were small but clean. A bed, a desk, and a window looking out at the stars. Vexithor left him alone to unpack and prepare for tomorrow's lecture. Jake sat on the bed and opened his computer. He had notes about human military history and tactics. But looking at them now, everything seemed too simple, too basic. These alien cadets probably knew battle strategies that humans hadn't even thought of yet. He walked to the window and looked out at space. Somewhere out there was Earth, home. He wondered what his parents would think if they knew their son was about to lecture to the future military leaders of the galaxy. A soft chime told him someone was at his door. Jake opened it to find 3 young humans in academy uniforms. "Sergeant Murphy?" The woman in front had short brown hair and sharp eyes. "I'm Corporal Lisa Kane. These are Tony Martinez and Sam Cooper. We're exchange students here." Jake shook their hands. It felt good to see human faces. "What are you doing?" "Here?" "Learning alien military tactics," Tony said. He was short with dark skin and a quick smile. "Earth Command wants us to understand how other species fight, and teaching them about us," Sam added. He was tall and thin with red hair. "Though most of them think we're just barbarians who got lucky." Lisa nodded. "They don't understand human tactics at all. They think we're too random, too unpredictable." "Maybe we are," Jake said. "That's not a bad thing," Sam said. "We've seen their training exercises. Everything is planned out in advance. If something goes wrong, they stick to the plan anyway, even when the plan is obviously not working," Tony added. Jake thought about that. "What do you think I should tell them tomorrow?" Lisa smiled. "Tell them the truth. That humans don't follow plans. We adapt." "They won't like that," Jake said. "Probably not," she agreed. "But maybe it's time they learned something new." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the lecture. What could he possibly teach these advanced alien military students? They had technology humans could barely understand. They had been fighting wars when humans were still living in caves. But then he remembered Titan again. The way his squad had improvised when their equipment failed. The way they had used mining tools as weapons when they ran out of ammunition. The way they had talked the colonists into helping instead of hiding. None of it was in any military manual. They had just done what seemed right at the time. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was what made humans different. Jake finally fell asleep, thinking about tomorrow, about standing in front of 200 alien cadets and trying to explain why chaos sometimes worked better than order. He had no idea that by the end of the week, he would be proving it in real combat. The lecture hall was bigger than Jake had expected. It looked like a giant bowl with seats going up in circles around a center stage. Holographic projectors hung from the ceiling like metal spiders. 200 alien cadets filled the seats. All staring down at him, Jake stood at the bottom feeling very small. His simple green Marine uniform looked plain next to the colorful and elaborate clothing the aliens wore. Some cadets had ceremonial armor. Others wore robes covered in symbols. A few didn't wear anything at all because they had natural armor, or shells. Commander Vexithor stepped to a podium near the stage. His 6 arms moved as he spoke. "Cadets, today we have a special guest, Staff Sergeant Jake Murphy from the human military. He will discuss human combat doctrine and tactical flexibility." Jake noticed how Vexithor said tactical flexibility, like it was something distasteful. Like it was a polite way of saying, making things up. "Humans are a young species," Vexithor continued. They have been in space for less than 40 years. However, they have participated in several conflicts with surprising results. Perhaps we can learn something from their unconventional approaches. Several cadets made sounds that might have been laughter. A large creature that looked like a walking tank rumbled something in a deep voice. Others nodded in agreement. Vexthor gestured toward Jake. "Sergeant Murphy, please begin." Jake walked to the center of the stage. The lights dimmed, and a holographic display appeared around him. He could control it with hand gestures, showing images and videos to illustrate his points. "Thank you, Commander Vexthor," Jake said. His voice echoed in the large hall. "I'm here to talk about how humans fight. But first, let me ask you something. How many of you have studied human military history?" About half the cadets raised hands, claws, tentacles, or whatever they used to indicate yes. Good. Then you know humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've used every weapon we could think of. Sticks, stones, gunpowder, nuclear weapons. We've fought on land, sea, air, and now space. A cadet near the front spoke up. It was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. That proves humans are violent and primitive. Civilized species learn to resolve conflicts peacefully. Maybe, Jake said. But it also means we've had a lot of practice. Jake gestured, and the hologram showed a map of Earth with red dots marking battles throughout history. Every war taught us something new. Every battle forced us to adapt. When cavalry ruled the battlefield, we invented guns. When armor became too strong, we invented bigger guns. When walls became too high, we learned to fly over them. A voice from the back called out, "Any species can develop new weapons. That is not tactical innovation." "You're right," Jake agreed. "Technology alone isn't enough. Let me show you something else." The hologram changed to show a forest. Green trees covered rolling hills. "This is a simulation of the Battle of Thermopylae. 300 Spartan warriors held off thousands of Persian soldiers. They didn't have better weapons or armor. They just chose the right place to fight." A creature that looked like a rock with legs spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "This is basic terrain utilization. All species understand defensive positioning." "Do they?" Jake asked. He gestured and the scene changed. Now it showed a city with tall buildings and narrow streets. "What about urban combat? Fighting in spaces not designed for battle?" The hologram showed human soldiers moving through buildings, using windows and doorways for cover. They climbed walls, hid in sewers, and turned civilian objects into weapons. Or jungle warfare? The scene changed again to dense tropical forest. Desert combat, mountain fighting. Each environment requires different tactics. A cadet with wings folded against her back called out, "Any competent military adapts to terrain. This is not uniquely human." Jake smiled. "You're absolutely right. But here's the difference. Watch this." The hologram showed the same battle scenario, 3 times. In the first, human soldiers followed a careful plan, moving in formation from point A to point B. In the second, the plan went wrong when they encountered unexpected resistance. The soldiers immediately changed tactics, splitting up and approaching from different angles. "Most military doctrines teach you to make a plan and follow it," Jake explained. "Human doctrine teaches you to make a plan and be ready to throw it away." A massive creature near the front spoke in a voice like thunder. Jake recognized it as one of the Zenthari, a warrior species known for their size and strength. "This is chaos, not tactics. Military success requires discipline and order." "Does it?" Jake asked. Let me tell you about the Titan Rebellion. The hologram changed to show a mining colony on a barren moon. Industrial buildings and mining equipment filled the landscape under a poisonous yellow sky. 3 years ago, raiders attacked this colony. The defenders had a good plan. Hold the main buildings, use the mining equipment as barriers, wait for reinforcement. The scene played out as Jake described. Defenders in covered positions, raiders attacking in waves, a classic siege scenario. The plan was good. It should have worked, but the raiders had better weapons and more soldiers. After 2 weeks, the defenders were losing. Jake paused and looked around the hall. The alien cadets were paying attention now, so the human commander threw away the plan. The hologram showed human soldiers leaving their defensive positions. They scattered across the mining facility in small groups. Instead of defending buildings, they defended people. Instead of holding ground, they became mobile. When the raiders attacked the main building, they found it empty. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. The scene showed raiders searching empty buildings, while small groups of humans attacked from unexpected directions. Mining equipment became improvised weapons. Maintenance tunnels became secret passages. Civilian miners became scouts and saboteurs. The raiders couldn't adapt, Jake continued. They kept following their plan even when it stopped working. They expected the humans to fight like a traditional military force. Instead, the humans fought, like humans. A cadet with silver skin and no visible mouth somehow spoke anyway. This sounds like guerrilla warfare. Many species have used such tactics. Some have, Jake agreed. But how many teach it as standard doctrine? How many train their soldiers to switch from conventional warfare to guerrilla tactics in the middle of a battle? Silence filled the hall. Jake could see the cadets thinking about that. Human military training doesn't just teach you how to follow orders, Jake said. It teaches you how to think for yourself when the orders don't make sense anymore. The large, Zenthari cadet spoke again. This is dangerous thinking. Soldiers who ignore orders create chaos. Military units require discipline and hierarchy. We have discipline, Jake said. But we also have initiative. Human soldiers are trained to understand the mission, not just their orders. If following orders means failing the mission, they're expected to find another way. A slender creature with too many joints in its arms raised what might have been a hand. You speak of adaptation as if it is simple, but military doctrine exists, for good reasons. Tested strategies prevent confusion and mistakes. Jake nodded. You're right. Doctrine is important. But what happens when your doctrine meets something it wasn't designed for? He gestured, and the hologram showed a new scenario. Theoretical question. Your enemy has studied your military doctrine. They know exactly how you fight. They've prepared counters for all your standard tactics. What do? The hall went quiet. Several cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some of you are thinking that wouldn't happen, Jake said. But it has happened. To humans, many times. We've faced enemies who knew our tactics better than we did, who had superior technology and numbers. And? The winged cadet asked. We won anyway, Jake said simply. Because when your enemy knows how you fight differently. The Zenthari cadet leaned forward. You speak in generalities, human. Can you demonstrate these concepts? Jake looked up at Commander Vex Thor, who was watching with interest. Actually, I was hoping we could do some practical exercises. Does the Academy have combat simulation facilities? Vex Thor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Yes, but those are for advanced students only. The scenarios are quite challenging. Perfect. Jake said. "Would some of you like to volunteer for a demonstration?" The Academy's simulation center was impressive. The room was the size of a football field with a curved ceiling that could project any environment. Advanced computers called the Nexus could create realistic battles with virtual enemies, terrain, and weather. Jake stood in the control booth with Commander Vexthor and several Academy instructors. Below them, 50 alien cadets prepared for the simulation. They had organized themselves into groups based on their species, each following their traditional military structure. The Zenthari formed a heavy assault group. 10 massive warriors, in powered armor, each one twice Jake's size. They moved in perfect formation, their leader Captain Zorkath giving orders in a deep, rumbling voice. The Vex had created an analytical command unit. 12 insect-like beings with multiple arms worked at portable computers, calculating optimal strategies. Their leader, Sub-Commander Kikthara, spoke in rapid clicks and whistles as data flowed across holographic displays. The Corvin had assembled, an honor guard formation. 8 elegant humanoids with pale blue skin and elaborate ceremonial armor stood in a precise diamond pattern. Their captain, Lord Veltar, held an energy blade that hummed with contained power. Other species had formed, smaller groups. Flying cadets took positions as aerial scouts. Heavily armored rock-like beings prepared to serve as mobile cover. Each group had trained for years in their traditional combat roles. "Impressive organization," Jake commented. "Indeed," Vexthor replied. "Each species contributes their natural strength to create a balanced force. The Zenthari provide assault power, the Vex handle strategy and analysis, the Corvin lead with honor and courage. This is how galactic military doctrine works." Jake nodded and looked toward the corner where Lisa, Tony, and Sam waited. The 3 human exchange students looked small and out of place compared to the organized alien formations. "And what is your human strategy?" one of the Academy instructors asked. It was a tall, gray creature with 6 legs and no visible eyes. "We'll figure it out as we go," Jake said. The instructor made a sound that might have been laughter or disgust. "That is not a strategy. That is improvisation." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Jake replied. Commander Vexithor activated the simulation controls. "Initiating training scenario 77 Alpha. Objective: defend mining colony from raider attack. Estimated enemy force, 200 hostiles with standard weapons and vehicles." The room transformed around the cadets. Rocky ground appeared under their feet. Industrial buildings materialized in the distance. A yellow sky with 2 suns created harsh shadows across the landscape. The air shimmered with heat waves. "This is a recreation of the Kepler-5 mining incident," Vexthor explained. 3 years ago, raiders overwhelmed the colony defenses in 47 minutes. The simulation uses actual tactical data from that battle. Jake watched as the alien cadets moved into position. The Zenthari took control of the main defensive line, positioning themselves behind barricades near the colony's entrance. The Vex set up their command post in the central building, computers already analyzing enemy approach routes. The Corvin formed an honor guard around critical facilities. Everything was orderly, professional, and exactly what the simulation expected. Human. "Team, what are your positions?" Vexthor asked. Jake activated his communication link to Lisa, Tony, and Sam. "Do what feels right. Don't worry about the plan." "What plan?" Sam asked over the radio. "Exactly," Jake replied. The simulation began. Red dots appeared on the tactical display as enemy raiders approached from 3 directions. The alien cadets responded perfectly, following standard galactic military doctrine. The Zenthari opened fire with heavy weapons as soon as the raiders came into range. Their shots were accurate and devastating. Several enemy vehicles exploded in brilliant flashes. The Vex quickly analyzed the enemy formation and identified weak points. They directed supporting fire to maximum effect, coordinating the different species with mathematical precision. The Corvin held their positions with perfect discipline, ready to make heroic last stands if necessary. For the first 10 minutes, everything went according to plan. The raiders attacked, the defenders responded, and the battle proceeded exactly as military textbooks said it should. Then the simulation introduced complications. Enemy air support detected, the Nexus announced. Hostile aircraft approaching from the west. The flying cadets moved to intercept, but the enemy planes were faster and better armed. Within minutes, the defenders had lost air superiority. Subterranean movement detected, the Nexus continued. Enemy tunneling equipment compromising defensive positions. The rock-like cadets tried to reinforce the underground areas, but they were too slow. Explosions erupted beneath the main defensive line as raiders emerged from tunnels. Enemy jamming successful, communication systems compromised. Suddenly, the careful coordination between species broke down. The Vex couldn't direct supporting fire. The Zenthari couldn't call for reinforcements. The Corvin couldn't coordinate their honor guards. Jake watched the tactical display with interest. The alien forces were still fighting bravely, but they were fighting separately now. Each group followed their species' doctrine, but they couldn't adapt to work together without their communication systems. "Where are your humans?" Vexthor asked. The tactical display showed Lisa, Tony, and Sam moving around the battlefield but not following any recognizable pattern. "Doing their job," Jake said. On the display, Lisa had climbed to the top of a mining tower that everyone else had ignored. From there, she had a clear view of the entire battlefield. She started picking off enemy commanders with precise sniper fire. Tony had disappeared into the colony's maintenance tunnels. He wasn't trying to stop the enemy diggers. Instead, he was using their own tunnels to move around behind enemy lines. Explosions began appearing in the enemy rear areas as he sabotaged their equipment. Sam was doing something that confused everyone. He had approached a group of simulated colonists who were hiding in a shelter. Instead of protecting them, he was talking to them. "What is that human doing?" the six-legged instructor asked. "Civilians have no role in military operations." Jake smiled. "Watch and see." A few minutes later, the colonists emerged from their shelter, but instead of running away, they spread out across the colony. Some began operating mining equipment to create new defensive positions. Others started providing intelligence about enemy movements through areas only they knew well. "This is highly irregular," Vexthor said. "Military doctrine clearly states that civilians should be evacuated from combat zones. Human doctrine says you use every resource available," Jake replied. The battle continued for another 20 minutes. The alien cadets fought well, but they were losing. The raiders had superior numbers and had successfully disrupted the defenders' organization. But something strange was happening on the tactical display. The three humans were everywhere. Lisa moved from position to position, always showing up where sniper fire could do the most damage. Tony appeared and disappeared like a ghost, striking enemy supply lines and communication centers. Sam had somehow organized the colonists into an effective intelligence network. More importantly, the humans were adapting to help the alien cadets work together despite their communication problems. Lisa used her sniper rifle to mark targets for the Zenthari heavy weapons. Tony guided Corvin honor guards through maintenance tunnels to attack enemy flanks. Sam coordinated between species using the colonist network as messengers. Fascinating, Vex Thor murmured. The humans are serving as adaptive interfaces between the different species' doctrines. The turning point came when the raiders launched their final assault. They had broken through the main defensive line and were advancing on the colony's central facilities. By all standard calculations, the defense should have collapsed. Instead, chaos erupted in the enemy ranks. Lisa had identified the enemy command vehicle and put a sniper round through its communication array. Tony had sabotaged their supply convoy, leaving the assault force without ammunition resupply. Sam had convinced the colonists to flood several mining tunnels, trapping enemy forces underground. But the most effective disruption came from something no military textbook had ever described. The human soldiers had taught the alien cadets to fight like humans. The Zenthari stopped following formation doctrine and started using their individual strength to maximum advantage. Instead of holding fixed positions, they became mobile-heavy weapons platforms. The Vex stopped trying to calculate optimal strategies and started responding to real-time battlefield changes. Their analytical abilities became tools for instant tactical adaptation rather than long-term planning. The Corvin abandoned their ceremonial formations and used their natural agility for hit-and-run attacks. Their honor became about completing the mission rather than following traditional codes. Simulation complete, the Nexus announced. Defensive victory achieved. Colony secured with minimal casualties. The simulated battlefield faded away, leaving the cadets standing in the empty simulation room. They looked confused and excited at the same time. Commander Vex Thor stared at the tactical analysis scrolling across his displays. This is unexpected. The defensive force achieved victory with 37% fewer casualties than standard projections. The debriefing session was unlike anything the Academy had ever seen. Instead of the usual orderly analysis, 50 alien cadets were all talking at once. Different species used different ways to communicate, creating a mixture of clicks, roars, whistles, and electronic sounds that filled the simulation room. Captain Zorkath stood in the center of the group, his massive frame towering over most of the other cadets. The human tactics worked, but they violated every principle of organized warfare. How can military units function without clear command structure? We had a command structure, Lisa replied from where she sat cleaning her simulated sniper rifle. It just wasn't written down anywhere. That makes no sense, Sub-Commander Kikthara said, her forearms moving rapidly as she analyzed data on a portable computer. Military efficiency requires predetermined roles and responsibilities. Tony climbed out of a maintenance hatch he had been examining. But what happens when your predetermined roles don't fit the situation? Do you keep following them anyway, Lord? Veltar touched his energy blade thoughtfully. In Corvin tradition, a warrior's role is sacred. To abandon it would be dishonorable. Even if abandoning it saves lives? Sam asked. He was still surrounded by several cadets from different species who were asking questions about civilian coordination. Jake watched the discussion from the control booth with Commander Vex Thor and the Academy instructors. The alien commanders. 4 eyes were focused on different groups of cadets as they debated. This is highly irregular, the 6-legged instructor commented. Students should not question fundamental military doctrine. Should they just accept it without understanding why it exists? Jake asked. Commander Vex Thor made a sound that might have been thoughtful. The human sergeant raises an interesting point. Perhaps we should examine this more closely. He activated the room's holographic display system. Attention, cadets. We will analyze the simulation to understand what occurred. The chatter died, down as the cadets focused on the central display. A three-dimensional map of the mining colony appeared, showing the movement of both defender and attacker forces throughout the battle. Standard analysis, Vexthor announced. Defensive positions, enemy approach routes, engagement sequences. The display showed the battle as it should have happened according to doctrine. Neat lines marked defensive positions. Arrows showed planned enemy movements. Numbers indicated optimal firing solutions and casualty estimates. According to this analysis, the defense should have failed, Vexthor continued. Enemy forces had superior numbers and equipment. Defensive positions were compromised early in the engagement. Communication breakdown eliminated command coordination. He Dao paused and looked around the room. Yet you achieved victory. How? A winged cadet named Flight Leader Sarmoth raised one clawed hand. The humans did not follow standard positioning. They moved constantly, making them difficult to target. Mobility has always been a valid tactic, the rock-like cadet named Stone Guard Creighton rumbled. But it requires predetermined movement patterns to avoid confusion. We didn't have predetermined patterns, Lisa said. We moved where we needed to be. How did you know where you needed to be? Captain Zorkath asked. We looked around and figured it out, Tony replied. Several cadets made sounds of disbelief. Sub-Commander Kikthara's computer clicked rapidly as she tried to process this information. That is not a tactical system. That is random chance, is it? Jake asked from the control booth. Lisa, why did you go to the mining tower? High ground, good visibility, clear firing lanes, she answered immediately. Basic sniper positioning. Tony, why did you use the enemy tunnels instead of trying to stop them? Because stopping them would have taken too long, Tony said. Using their own tunnels gave me access to their rear areas. Sam, why did you involve the civilians? Because they knew the colony better than anyone else, Sam explained. They could see things we couldn't and go places we didn't know about. Jake looked at the alien cadets. Does that sound like random chance to you? Commander Vexthor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The humans were following tactical principles, but they were applying them in real time based on battlefield conditions, rather than following predetermined plans. Exactly, Jake said. Human military training teaches you the principles behind tactics, not just the tactics themselves. When you understand why something works, you can apply it to new situations. A slender cadet with too many joints in her arms spoke up. But this requires soldiers to make strategic decisions independently. That could lead to chaos. It could, Jake agreed. That's why human military training includes decision-making under pressure. We teach soldiers to think, not just follow orders. Captain Zorkath crossed his massive arms. Zenthari warriors are trained to follow orders without question. This ensures unit cohesion and prevents confusion in battle. What happens when the orders are wrong? Lisa asked. Orders are not wrong. They come from superior officers with better information and training. But what if the situation changes after the orders are given? Tony pressed. What if following the orders would make things worse? The big Zenthari was quiet for a moment. That would be a problem. Sub-Commander Kikthara looked up from her computer. I have analyzed the simulation data. The human actions created 17 major variables that were not accounted for in standard tactical doctrine. Were they random variables? Jake asked. No, she admitted after a pause. Each action was a logical response to specific battlefield conditions, but the combinations created outcomes that could not be predicted in advance. Lord Veltar stepped forward. In the simulation, I abandoned my honor guard formation to conduct flanking attacks. By Corvan tradition, this was improper, yet it contributed to our victory. Was it really improper? Sam asked. Or was your real honor in helping win the battle? The elegant alien was quiet for a long moment. That is a complex question. Jake came down from the control booth to join the group on the simulation floor. Let me ask all of you something. What's more important, following doctrine or completing the mission? The mission, several cadets replied immediately. Following doctrine ensures mission success, others argued. Does it? Jake asked. What if the enemy has studied your doctrine? What if they know exactly what you're going to do? A smaller cadet, who looked like a walking plant, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. Then the enemy would have significant tactical advantage. So what would you do? Jake pressed. The plant cadet was quiet. Several other cadets shifted uncomfortably. You'd have to do something different, Flight Leader Sarmoth said finally. Something the enemy hadn't prepared for. But that would mean abandoning doctrine, Stone Guard Creighton pointed out. Would it? Jake asked. Or would it mean understanding doctrine well enough to know when to modify it? Commander Vexthor watched the discussion with growing interest. Sergeant Murphy, are you suggesting that military doctrine should be flexible? I'm suggesting that doctrine should be a tool, not a rule, Jake replied. Tools are meant to be used for specific jobs. When the job changes, you need different tools. Or you need to use the same tools in different ways, Lisa added. Tony nodded. Like using maintenance tunnels for assault routes instead of just maintenance. Or using civilians as intelligence assets instead of just protecting them, Sam continued. Captain. Zorkath looked confused. But if everyone modifies doctrine independently, how do you maintain unit coordination? You coordinate around the mission, not the plan, Jake explained. Everyone understands what needs to be accomplished. How they accomplish it depends on the situation. This is difficult to accept, Sub-Commander Kikthara said. Vex military efficiency depends on precise calculations and predetermined responses. What happens when you encounter something you can't calculate? Tony asked. We analyze it until we can, she replied. What if there isn't time for analysis? The insect-like cadet was quiet. Sometimes you have to act on incomplete information, Lisa said. Sometimes you have to trust your training and your instincts. Instincts are unreliable, several cadets objected. Are they? Jake asked. Or are they just hard to explain? He gestured to the holographic display, which still showed the simulation battlefield. Every decision you made during the simulation was based on information. Some of it came from your sensors and computers. Some of it came from your training and experience. Some of it came from what felt right in the moment. The last category is what humans call instinct, he continued. It's not magic. It's your brain processing information faster than you can consciously analyze it. Commander Vexthor leaned forward. You're describing intuitive decision-making. This is not typically emphasized in military training. Maybe it should be, Jake said, because when everything goes wrong and all your plans fail, intuition might be the only thing that saves your life. The room fell silent as the alien. Cadets considered this. They had spent years learning to follow precise procedures and predetermined strategies. The idea of relying on intuition was frightening, but they had just seen it work. Sergeant Murphy, Lord Veltar said slowly, would it be possible to practice these adaptive techniques? Jake smiled. I was hoping you'd ask that question. The alarm started as a low hum that grew into a piercing wail. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the academy, and automated voices began speaking in multiple alien languages. Jake recognized the universal warning patterns, even though he couldn't understand most of the words. Commander Vexthor received an urgent message on his communication device. His 4 eyes widened as he read, and all 6 of his arms moved rapidly over the controls. "What's happening?" Jake asked as the alien. Cadets looked around in confusion. "Emergency transmission from Research Station Epsilon 7, Vexthor replied. His musical voice carried a note of tension. "They are under attack by the Kresh Syndicate." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He knew that name. The Kresh were raiders, who specialized in hitting isolated targets and disappearing before help could arrive. They were brutal, efficient, and completely without mercy. "How far away is the station?" Jake asked. 47 minutes by fast transport, Vexthor said. "The Galactic Defense Fleet is responding, but their nearest ships are 3 hours away." "What about local forces?" "This academy has 3 training vessels with limited armament. They are not designed for combat against organized raiders." Captain Zorkath stepped forward, his massive frame radiating determination. "Commander, request permission to mount a rescue mission. We cannot allow civilians to be slaughtered while we practice in simulations." Several other cadets voiced agreement. The Corvan Honor Guards stepped into formation behind Lord Veltar. Even the analytical Vex were clicking rapidly as they calculated response options. "Impossible," Vexthor said firmly. "Academy regulations prohibit student participation in active combat scenarios. Furthermore, untrained cadets would only create additional casualties." "Untrained?" Flight Leader Sarmoth's wings rustled with indignation. "We are the finest military students in the galaxy." "You are students," Vexthor emphasized. "Your species' governments would not forgive me if I led their future leaders into unnecessary danger." Jake studied the tactical display that had appeared on the nearest wall screen. Research Station Epsilon 7 was a small facility studying exotic matter. 300 civilian researchers and their families lived there. The Kresh Syndicate typically killed anyone who might identify them later. "What about the training ships?" Jake asked. "Are they capable of combat?" "Limited capability," Vexthor admitted. "Light shielding, basic weapons, minimal armor. They were designed for training exercises, not actual warfare." "But they can fly and shoot?" "Yes, but then they're better than nothing," Jake interrupted. "Commander, I respectfully request permission to lead a rescue mission." The alien commander's 4 eyes focused on Jake with laser intensity. "Sergeant Murphy, you are a guest lecturer, not a command officer. You have no authority to—" "I'm the only experienced combat veteran here," Jake said quietly. "Those people are going to die unless someone helps them. The defense fleet won't arrive in time. The risk is too great. The Academy can't," Jake agreed. "But I can. I volunteer for independent action. Give me 1 ship and I'll go alone." "That would be suicide," Sub-Commander Kikthara said. Her computer was displaying analysis of the Kresh Syndicate's typical force composition. "Standard Raider assault team consists of 50 to 75 combat veterans with military-grade equipment." "Then I'll have to be creative," Jake replied. "Captain," Zorkath slammed one massive fist into his palm. "Human, you cannot face such odds alone. If you go, I go with you." "And I," Lord Veltar said, his hand moving to his energy blade. "Corvan honor demands it," several other honor guards agreed. "Vex tactical analysis indicates mission failure probability of 93%, Kikthara announced. However, civilian casualty probability without intervention approaches 100%. Simple mathematics, another Vex cadet added. Attempted rescue is preferable to certain massacre. Soon, voices from all the alien species were volunteering for the mission. Even the rock-like stone guard Creighton rumbled his willingness to help. Commander Vexthor looked overwhelmed. This is madness. You are students, not soldiers. Most of you have never seen real combat. Neither had we until an hour ago, Tony said. He and Lisa and Sam had been quiet during the discussion, but now they stepped forward. We'll go too. Absolutely not, Vexthor said. Humans are even more restricted than the other species. Your government specifically, our government isn't. Here, Lisa said simply. Those people need help now. Jake looked around at the determined faces of the alien cadets. They came from 12 different species with 12 different military traditions, but they all shared something important. They couldn't stand by while innocent people died. Commander, Jake said carefully, what if this were an advanced training exercise? A simulation with unusually realistic parameters? Vexthor's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Sergeant Murphy, this is not a simulation. This is actual combat with real casualties. I know, Jake said. But what if it weren't? Hypothetically speaking, the alien commander was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see him thinking, weighing regulations against lives, protocol against conscience. Hypothetically, Vexthor said slowly, advanced students might participate in emergency response scenarios under the supervision of qualified instructors. And hypothetically, I'm qualified to supervise such an exercise? You are the only combat veteran present, Vexthor admitted. Hypothetically, you would be the logical choice for instructor supervision. Captain Zorkath looked confused. Are we discussing reality or hypothesis? Sometimes they're the same thing, Jake said, remembering his earlier conversation about tactics and improvisation. Vexthor activated the Academy's communication system. All volunteer cadets report to Training Base 7 immediately. This is an advanced emergency response exercise with live parameters. Instructor supervision provided by Sergeant Murphy. The alien cadets moved quickly toward the exit. They understood that lives depended on speed, regardless of what the mission was officially called. Sergeant Murphy, Vexthor said quietly as the cadets filed out. The training ships have limited capability against military raiders. Even with your experience, the odds of success are very low. I know, Jake replied, but doing nothing guarantees failure. The cadets trust you now. They will follow you into this dangerous situation because of what happened in the simulation. Jake nodded. I'll do my best to bring them home. See that you do. If this goes badly, it will end all cooperation between human and galactic military forces. And if it goes well? Vexthor made a sound that might have been a laugh. If it goes well, we may need to revise several thousand years of military doctrine. Jake hurried toward the training bay, his mind already working on the tactical problem. 3 lightly armed ships against professional raiders. Untrained students against experienced killers. A rescue mission with a deadline measured in minutes. It was exactly the kind of impossible situation that human military doctrine was designed for. The kind where following the book would get everyone killed, and improvisation was the only hope for survival. As he reached the training bay, Jake could see the 3 Academy ships being prepared for launch. They were sleek vessels designed for teaching space combat fundamentals. Light, fast, and barely armed. The alien cadets were already organizing themselves into crews. The Zenthari were checking weapon systems. The Vex were calculating flight paths and tactical options. The Corvin were preparing for what they saw as a glorious rescue mission. Lisa, Tony, and Sam were helping coordinate between the different species, serving as translators not just for language but for the different approaches to military preparation. All. Right, everyone, Jake called out as he approached the ships. Listen up. We're about to do something that no military textbook would recommend. We're going to take 3 training ships against a professional raider force to rescue 300 civilians. The cadets gathered around him, representing 12 different species, but united in purpose. The good news is that the raiders won't expect us. They think they have at least 3 hours before any military response arrives. The bad news? Captain Zorkath asked. Jake smiled grimly. Everything else. But that's never stopped humans before. What are your orders, Sergeant? Lord Veltar asked. Jake looked around at the determined alien faces. These weren't soldiers yet, but they were warriors in the making. And sometimes warriors were exactly what the galaxy needed. Same as always, he said. We make it up as we go along. The 3 Academy training ships left Kepler Station looking like they were heading out for a routine exercise. Jake hoped the Kresh Raiders would see them the same way if they bothered to look at all. Jake sat in the command chair of the lead ship, surrounded by alien cadets who were trying to hide their nervousness. The ship was called the Teaching Star, which seemed inappropriate for a rescue mission heading into combat. Time to target. 38 minutes, announced Sub-Commander Kikthara from the navigation station. Her 4 arms moved constantly over the controls as she calculated the most efficient approach route. Captain Zorkath occupied the weapons station, his massive frame barely fitting in the chair designed for smaller species. Weapon systems show green across all indicators, though I must note that these training lasers are significantly underpowered compared to military standard. They'll have to do, Jake replied. He activated the communication system to talk to the other 2 ships. Phoenix Wing, Eagle's Eye, report status. Phoenix Wing ready, came Lord Veltar's voice from the 2nd ship. All Corvin honor guards at battle stations. Eagle's Eye operational, reported Flight Leader Sarmoth from the 3rd vessel. Mixed crew reports ready for action. Jake studied the tactical display showing their approach to Research Station Epsilon 7. According to the Academy's databases, the station was built around a large asteroid with docking facilities and research laboratories carved into the rock. It was isolated, valuable, and defenseless, exactly the kind of target the Kresh Syndicate preferred. Sergeant Murphy, came a voice from behind him. Stone Guard Creighton had somehow squeezed his rock-like body into the communication station. Long-range sensors detect 4 ships at the target location. Configuration matches Kresh assault vessels. 4 ships. Jake felt his stomach tighten. That meant at least 60 raiders, possibly more. Professional killers with military-grade weapons and armor facing off against students in training ships. Analysis of enemy vessels, Kikthara reported. 2 fast attack craft, 1 assault transport, 1 command ship. Combined firepower exceeds our capabilities by approximately 400%. What about maneuverability? Jake asked. Academy training ships are faster and more agile than standard raider vessels, she replied after checking her calculations. However, this advantage is negated by their superior weaponry and defensive systems. Tony's voice came over the communication system from the Phoenix Wing. Any word from the research station? Negative, Creighton rumbled. No communications detected since initial distress call. That wasn't good. Either the raiders had disabled the station's communication system, or there was nobody left alive to send messages. New contacts, Kikthara announced suddenly. 2 additional ships launching from the asteroid. Configuration unknown. Jake leaned forward to study the display. 6 ships now. The odds just kept getting worse. "Wait," said a new voice. One of the plant-like cadets named Growth Tender Velka had been monitoring communication frequencies. "I'm detecting transmissions between the new contacts and our approaching vessels." "Raider communications?" Jake asked. "Negative. These appear to be escape pods, modified with basic engines and life support." Jake felt a surge of hope. "Someone's escaping from the station." 2 ships versus 6 is still impossible odds, Captain Zorkath pointed out. "Unless we change the game," Jake said. He activated the ship-to-ship communication system. "All ships, listen carefully. We're not going to fight the raiders directly." "Sir?" Lord Veltar's confused voice came through. Clearly, the raiders expect any rescue force to attack their ships. That's what military doctrine says we should do. Engage the enemy fleet, establish space superiority, then proceed with rescue operations. "That is correct tactical procedure, Kikthara." "Confirmed, and it would get us all killed," Jake said. "So we're going to do something else." He pulled up a detailed scan of the asteroid research station. "The raiders are focused on looting the facility and capturing prisoners. They'll have guards watching for incoming ships, but they won't expect us to ignore their fleet." "You want us to fly past their ships?" Flight Leader Sarmoth asked from Eagle's Eye. "I want us to split up and attack 3 different targets simultaneously," Jake explained. "Phoenix Wing, you're going after those escape pods. Get between them and the raider ships. Use your speed to keep them safe while they reach minimum safe distance." "Understood," Lord Veltar replied immediately. "Eagle's Eye, I want you to take out the raiders' communication array. It's that big antenna sticking out of the asteroid's North Pole. Without communications, they can't coordinate their response." "Copy that," Sarmoth acknowledged. "Teaching Star will handle the primary mission. We're going into the asteroid to extract any remaining civilians." Silence filled the communication channel for several seconds. "Sergeant," Captain Zorkath said slowly, "that plan requires us to fly through the raider defensive perimeter without engaging their combat vessels." "Exactly. They will pursue us. Some of them will. But they can't pursue all 3 targets at once without splitting their forces." Sub-Commander Kikthara's computer was clicking rapidly. "Analysis indicates 73% probability that raider forces will prioritize protecting their own ships over pursuing individual targets." "What about the other 27%? Tony asked. "Then we're in trouble," Jake admitted. "But we're in trouble anyway. At least this way we might save some people." The 3 ships approached the asteroid at maximum speed. On the tactical display, Jake could see the Kresh Raider vessels positioned around the research station like predators surrounding wounded prey. "Enemy sensors have detected our approach," Creighton reported. "They are moving to intercept." "Perfect," Jake said. "All ships execute in 3, 2, 1, now!" The 3 Academy ships suddenly changed course, splitting apart like an exploding firework. Phoenix Wing dove toward the fleeing escape pods. Eagle's Eye angled up toward the communication array. Teaching Star headed straight for the asteroid's main docking bay. The raider ships reacted exactly as Jake had hoped. They hesitated, uncertain which target to pursue first. That hesitation cost them precious seconds. "Raider fast attack craft pursuing Phoenix Wing," Lord Veltar reported. "Engaging evasive maneuvers." 2 raiders breaking off to intercept eagles. "Aye," Sarmoth announced. "Beginning attack run on communication array. Command ship and assault transport moving to block our approach to the asteroid," Kikthara observed. Jake gripped his command chair as the teaching star dove toward the research station's docking bay. Laser fire from the raider ships lit up space around them, but the Academy ship was small and fast enough to avoid most of it. "Incoming transmission," Growth Tender Velka announced. "Source, Kresh command ship." "Put it through," Jake said. A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking, accented Galactic Standard. "Unknown vessels, you are interfering with legal salvage operations. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." "Legal salvage?" Captain Zorkath growled. "These raiders dare claim legitimacy?" Jake activated his transmission controls. "Kresh Command, this is an Academy training exercise. We're just here to practice docking procedures." Laughter came through the communication channel. "Training exercise? You Academy fools have wandered into the wrong system. Turn around and go home before you get hurt." "Sorry, can't do that," Jake replied cheerfully. "We have to complete our exercise or we'll fail the class." The laughter stopped. "Then you will die for your grades, little students." The communication channel went silent. "Did you just provoke them?" Kikthara asked. "I bought us time," Jake corrected. "They think we're just stupid students who don't know what we've stumbled into. That makes us less of a threat in their minds." "Are we not stupid students who don't know what we've stumbled into?" Stoneguard Creighton asked. Jake smiled grimly as the teaching star approached the asteroid's docking bay. "We're students, and we definitely don't know what we're doing, but we're not stupid." "What's the difference?" Tony asked over the communication system. "Stupid students follow the rules even when the rules don't work," Jake replied. "Smart students know when to break them." The teaching star slipped into the research station's docking bay just as the first Raider missiles began exploding in the space behind them. Jake could hear the impacts echoing through the asteroid's structure. "Docking successful," Kikthara announced. "But the Raiders know we're here now." "Good," Jake said, unbuckling from his command chair. "Time to give them something to really worry about." The inside of Research Station Epsilon 7 was a nightmare. Emergency lighting cast red shadows through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Broken glass crunched under their feet as Jake led his mixed team of alien cadets through the abandoned research facility. Captain Zorkath moved behind Jake, his massive frame filling the corridor. The Zenthari warrior carried a heavy training weapon that looked like a toy in his hands, but his movements were alert and professional. Sub-Commander Kikthara scuttled along on 6 legs, her portable computer somehow still functioning despite the environmental chaos. She provided constant tactical updates as they moved deeper into the asteroid. Stone Guard Creighton brought up the rear, his rock-like body serving as mobile cover for the smaller team members. Growth Tender Velka stayed in the middle, using her plant-like senses to detect things the others might miss. "Biosigns detected," Velka whispered, her voice like rustling leaves. 37 meters ahead behind metal barriers. "How many?" Jake asked quietly. "Difficult to determine. Multiple life forms, but some are fading." They moved carefully through a laboratory filled with overturned equipment and scattered research materials. The air smelled of burned electronics, and something worse. "Movement!" Captain Zorkath rumbled, raising his weapon. Jake held up a hand to stop the team. Ahead, they could see figures moving through the red emergency lighting. The shapes were human-sized but moved wrong, too jerky and aggressive. "Raiders," Jake breathed. 4 of them, searching for stragglers. "Engaging," Captain Zorkath started, to move forward. "Wait!" Jake grabbed the massive alien's arm. "Remember the simulation. We don't fight fair. We fight smart." He pointed to a maintenance shaft above them. "Kikathera, can you get up there?" The insect-like cadet examined the shaft entrance. "Affirmative. My natural climbing abilities make vertical movement optimal." "Good. Get above them and wait for my signal. Zorkath, take position behind that overturned table. Creighton, can you block the corridor behind them?" "Easily," the rock-like cadet rumbled. "What about me?" Velka asked. "You're our ace in the hole," Jake said. "Can you affect their air supply? Make it hard to breathe?" The plant cadet's leaves rustled with what might have been amusement. "I can release spores that will cause severe respiratory distress." "Perfect. Everyone in position." The alien cadets moved with surprising stealth for students. Within minutes, they had surrounded the 4 raiders who were still searching the laboratory, unaware they were being hunted. Jake activated his communication device on a frequency the raiders would be monitoring. "Mayday, Mayday," he said in a panicked voice. "This is Research Station Epsilon 7. We have survivors trapped in Laboratory 7. Please help us." The raiders immediately changed direction, moving toward the laboratory where Jake's team was hidden. They were talking excitedly in their own language, probably discussing how much they could get for live prisoners. "Now," Jake whispered. Chaos erupted in the laboratory. Velka released a cloud of spores that made the raiders start coughing and gasping. Kikathera dropped from above, landing on one raider's back. Captain Zorkath charged from cover, his training weapon stunning another raider with precisely applied force. Creighton blocked the exit, trapping the remaining raiders in the room. The fight was over in seconds. 4 professional raiders had been taken down by students who had never seen real combat. "Status report," Jake called out. "Targets neutralized," Captain Zorkath reported with satisfaction. "No casualties among our forces," Kikathera added, checking her scanner. Jake examined the captured raiders. They wore standard mercenary armor with Kresh Syndicate markings, professional soldiers who had been completely outmaneuvered by Academy students. "How?" One of the conscious raiders gasped in accented Galactic Standard. "We learned from the best, teacher," Jake replied, not mentioning that the teacher was human military doctrine. "Phoenix Wing to Teaching Star." Lord Veltar's voice came through the communication system. "Escape pod successfully protected. Civilian evacuation in progress. Eagle's eye to all ships," Flight Leader Sarmoth reported. "Communication array destroyed. Raider coordination significantly impaired." "Good work," Jake replied. "Teaching Star proceeding with primary rescue mission." They moved deeper into the research station, using the captured raiders' equipment to track the locations of survivors. The Kresh had been methodical, herding civilians into secure areas while they looted the valuable research materials. 37. Life signs confirmed, Kikathera reported as they approached a sealed laboratory complex. Behind reinforced doors, also detecting 8 hostile contacts guarding the entrance. 8 raiders versus 5 students. The odds were still bad, but not impossible. "Velka, can you access the station's environmental systems?" Jake asked. The plant cadet extended several tendril-like appendages into a nearby wall panel. "Affirmative. I have control of atmospheric processors, lighting, and gravity generators. Can you create a distraction?" "Define distraction." Jake smiled. "Something that will make them think the station is falling apart." Velka's leaves rustled with what was definitely amusement now. "I can do better than that," Suddenly, the lights went out completely. Emergency gravity failed, causing loose objects to float through the corridors. Air circulation stopped, replaced by strange chemical smells that made breathing difficult. The raiders guarding the civilians started shouting in confusion. Some tried to contact their command ship, but their communications had been disrupted when Eagle's Eye destroyed the main array. "Move," Jake whispered. The alien cadets had trained in zero gravity and environmental hazards. They moved through the chaotic conditions like they were born to it. The raiders, focused on maintaining their guard positions, didn't notice the students approaching until it was too late. Captain Zorkath used his natural strength to devastating effect in zero gravity. Sub-Commander Kikthera's multiple arms and climbing ability made her nearly impossible to track in the dark. Stoneguard Creighton simply absorbed the raiders' weapons fire while advancing steadily forward. Jake and Velka coordinated the assault, using the station systems to create confusion while the other cadets eliminated threats. Within minutes, the laboratory complex was secure. "Civilians, this is a rescue operation," Jake announced as they opened the sealed doors. "We're here to get you out." The survivors who emerged were researchers and their families, dirty and frightened but alive. They looked at the mixed group of alien cadets with confusion and hope. "Who are you?" asked an elderly human scientist. "Galactic Military Academy," Captain Zorkath replied proudly. "Advanced Rescue Training Exercise." "Training exercise?" the scientist repeated. "Very advanced training," Jake said quickly. "We need to move. There are still raiders in the station." As they escorted the civilians toward the docking bay, Jake's communication system activated. "Teaching Star, this is Phoenix Wing." Lord Veltar's voice was tense. "Raider command ship is moving to intercept your escape route. We're attempting to draw them off, but they have superior firepower." "Eagle's Eye to all ships," Sarmoth added. "Multiple raider vessels converging on the asteroid. We may be trapped." Jake looked at the group of rescued civilians and his team of alien cadets. They had successfully completed the rescue mission, but now they were trapped inside the asteroid with angry raiders closing in from all sides. "Sergeant," Captain Zorkath said quietly, "what are your orders?" Jake thought about everything that had happened. The simulation that taught them to adapt. The lecture about human tactics. The decision to ignore doctrine and improvise solutions. "Same as always," he said. "We make it up as we go along." But this time he wasn't sure improvisation would be enough. The raiders were angry, organized, and heavily armed. The Academy students had succeeded through surprise and superior tactics. But now the surprise was gone. They needed something new. Something the raiders wouldn't expect. Something that would turn their greatest strength into a weakness. Jake looked at the rescued civilians and had an idea. It was crazy, dangerous, and completely contrary to every rule of military engagement. In other words, it was perfectly human. "Listen up, everyone," he said. "We're going to do something that no military force in galactic history has ever attempted." "What?" Sub-Commander Kikthera asked. Jake smiled grimly. "We're going to teach a bunch of raiders what happens when you mess with civilians who have nothing left to lose." The plan was insane. Even by human standards, it violated every principle of military common sense. But as Jake explained it to the rescued civilians and alien cadets, he could see understanding dawn in their eyes. "You want us to fight?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim, the elderly research scientist who seemed to be the senior survivor. "We're civilians. We don't have military training." "You have something better," Jake replied. "You know this station better than anyone else. Every corridor, every system, every piece of equipment." "But we're not soldiers," protested a younger researcher. Neither were the colonists on Titan, Jake said, but they helped win that battle because they understood their home. Captain Zorkath looked confused. Sergeant, military doctrine clearly states that civilians should be evacuated from combat zones not involved in military operations. And if we follow that doctrine, we'll all die, Jake replied. The raiders have us trapped. Our ships can't break through their blockade. But we don't need to break through if we can make them leave. Sub-Commander Kik Thara's computer was clicking rapidly as she analyzed the situation. Raider forces significantly outnumber our capabilities. However, they are primarily focused on asset acquisition and prisoner capture. Exactly, Jake said. They came here to steal research materials and take prisoners they can sell. But what if the research materials became worthless? What if the prisoners became more trouble than they're worth? Stone Guard Creighton rumbled thoughtfully. You propose to eliminate their profit motivation. I propose to make this the worst business decision they've ever made, Jake corrected. Growth Tender Velka had been listening through the station's communication systems. The raiders are organizing search teams. They know we're here and they want us alive. Then let's give them what they want, Jake said. Dr. Kim, what kind of research were you doing here? Exotic matter manipulation, she replied. We were studying ways to modify the fundamental properties of materials. Could you modify something to be, say, extremely unstable? Dr. Kim's eyes widened. You want us to sabotage our own research? I want you to make this station so dangerous that staying here becomes suicidal, Jake explained. The raiders think they've cornered us. Instead, we're going to corner them. The next hour was unlike anything in military history. While the alien cadets established defensive positions throughout the station, the rescued civilians became saboteurs in their own home. Dr. Kim and her team began modifying their experimental equipment to create unpredictable energy surges. Research. Materials that had taken months to develop were reconfigured into improvised hazards. Laboratory equipment became booby traps that would activate when disturbed. Raider teams entering Section C, Velka reported from her position at the environmental controls. 12 hostiles with heavy equipment. Spring the trap, Jake ordered. The lights in Section C suddenly blazed with blinding intensity before going completely dark. Modified gravity generators created pockets of crushing weight followed by zero-gravity zones. The air itself became dangerous as Dr. Kim's experiments released clouds of charged particles that interfered with electronic equipment. The raiders' sophisticated weapons and armor became liabilities in the chaotic environment. Their night vision systems failed in the charged atmosphere. Their communication devices malfunctioned from electromagnetic interference. Their heavy armor made them clumsy in the shifting gravity fields. Meanwhile, the civilians moved through their modified station like they owned it. Because they did. Teaching star to Phoenix Wing, Jake called over the communication system. Status report. Phoenix Wing operational, Lord Veltar replied. We're keeping the raider ships busy, but they're getting frustrated. They may resort to bombardment soon. Eagle's Eye here, Flight Leader Sarmoth added. Raider command ship is demanding we surrender. They're threatening to destroy the asteroid if we don't comply. Jake looked at Dr. Kim. How long before your modifications make the station uninhabitable? At current rate of expansion, approximately 30 minutes, she replied. But the effects are exponential. After that, anyone still inside will face severe radiation exposure. Fact. Timing, Jake said. Velka, open a communication channel to the Raider command ship. Channel open, the plant cadet confirmed. Jake activated his transmitter. Kresh command. This is Research Station Epsilon 7. We're ready to discuss terms. The harsh voice of the Raider commander came through clearly. Finally showing sense, Academy fools. You will surrender all personnel and research materials immediately. About that, Jake said conversationally. There's been a slight complication with the research materials. Explain. Well, it turns out that exotic matter research is extremely dangerous when handled improperly, and we've been handling it very improperly for the last hour. Silence from the Raider ship. You see, Jake continued, your boarding teams have been triggering our experimental containment failures. The station is now experiencing cascade reactions in 17 different laboratory complexes. You are lying. Check your sensors, Jake suggested. I think you'll find the energy readings have become quite interesting. After a moment, the